So I'm just a few days shy of 1 full month with the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I wanted to make this video to share some of my thoughts on the new hardware and features, and to hopefully help you decide whether this is worth the upgrade from the new lineup itself or from an older iPhone. This was one of the most highly anticipated iPhone releases in quite a long time, and overall I do think this is an amazing phone, but there are definitely some shortcomings that didn't quite make the wish list or don't operate to the level I had hoped. Starting off with the overall design though, I absolutely love what they've done with the design and the changes for this year's iPhone. They've brought back those flat edges from the older iPhone 4 and 5. Those are the same ones that you see on the newer iPad Pros and iPad Air. I am such a huge fan of that more industrial look with the flatter edges. Comes in with a 6.7-inch screen, which is just slightly larger than last year's 6.5-inch screen on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. I've had quite a few people talk about how gigantic this feels in the hand, and although it is definitely big in the hand, I don't have quite the same opinion comparing it to the 11 Pro Max that I came from. It definitely has a big feel, but I almost prefer the flatter edges, and in my opinion it really doesn't feel any bigger. So if you're familiar with the rest of the Max lineup and size, I don't think this is going to be too dramatically different like some other reviewers have been talking about. One of my favorite things about the Pro design lineup is the matte glass back. I am always a big fan of matte over glossy, and I absolutely love the contrast from the shiny stainless steel edges to the matte back in comparison to the regular iPhone 12. You're definitely going to track some fingerprints on the edges here, but it again was not nearly as bad as what some people were talking about online. I will say though, with the space gray or graphite or whatever they called this year's gray color, you get a darker stainless steel edge around with the graphite color, so I think that does help mitigate some of those ugly fingerprints. After a couple of days of use, I didn't really notice it being too bad or too different from my previous year's models. Overall though, I just really love the look and feel of this new phone. I love being able to stand it up by itself like you see in the frame here. It actually comes in handy for photos and videos to be able to prop it somewhere and do longer exposures or more stable video. Speaking of photos and video, the camera system has been completely revamped for this year, specifically with the Pro Max size. This was something I was very excited for and definitely put me over the edge for deciding on the Max size versus the other options. And I am sorry to say that it doesn't really seem too dramatically different from the iPhone 12 or the iPhone 12 Pro's cameras. I'm not a super technical pixel peeper. There are plenty of videos out there if you want to go check that sort of thing out, but the differences seem pretty negligible. All of that being said, the iPhone cameras still continue to be some of the best in the entire industry. You could definitely argue a few other phones being better for photos than the iPhone, but in my opinion, the iPhone still continues to lead by a long margin in video capabilities. It's increasingly more and more looking like a real possibility for anyone that's wanting to start YouTube to pair this with a proper microphone, and you've got a setup that is going to last you for years and get you a nice professional look. I would highly suggest you check out Potato Jet's channel. I think it was on his second channel, Gene Nagata, but he did a full video with the Tascam DR10L, which I've talked about and loved here, paired with the iPhone 12 Pro Max's camera, and the vlog looked great, and I think to any normal person's eye probably wouldn't be able to tell the difference from the normal quality in his channel. So it's definitely getting to the point where if you're a new YouTuber or any kind of YouTuber really, especially a vlogger, this is increasingly becoming one of your best options for a camera. The new addition of Dolby Vision for the video capabilities was a welcomed one for me. Although not very many people have HDR displays, this gives you a lot more flexibility in editing. It's similar to my Sony a7 III that you're seeing here. I typically shoot my videos in an HLG format, which is kind of a similar HDR type of look, but I convert it in in the editing process, and it gives me a lot more leeway in dynamic range. So being able to do the same thing with my phone is completely insane and has been really great so far in my initial testing. The front-facing camera isn't quite up to the standard of the main sensor on the wide-angle back camera, but it definitely is looking pretty good. And I've also noticed with my testing, the addition of the LiDAR sensor seems to be helping a lot with portrait mode photos. I'm generally someone that's avoided portrait mode since it initially came out on any of the phones, just because those cutouts can look so rough and jaggedy, and maybe I just have a bit more of a trained eye, but it just wasn't quite up to a level where I was comfortable using it. The LiDAR sensor really seems to be helping with getting those cutouts better. It's definitely not 100% perfect yet, but it's at the level where I am actually comfortable using it. These new sensors have also been able to produce a lot of really great bokeh in the right conditions, even without the portrait mode. I included a few shots with Christmas lights in the background when I was walking around Portland the other day. You can definitely get some really nice bokeh in the background and a lot of really good depth of field with such a small sensor, even without using portrait mode. So that was a lot of good stuff about the cameras, but I do actually have some annoyances with them as well. This year, again, we seem to run into the problem where the main wide-angle lens looks incredible, but the second you switch to the telephoto or the ultra-wide, images really start to fall apart in less than ideal conditions. The new ultra-wide is definitely an improvement over the 11 Pro Max. They reduced quite a bit of that fisheye distortion look that you had on the 11 Pro, and they have also sharpened it up quite a bit compared to last year. But I still consistently find myself wanting to switch back to my main wide-angle camera lens when I'm out in different shooting situations, even though those other focal lengths might be a little more appropriate for what I need. The speakers on the 12 Pro are both incredibly loud and sound excellent. It's obviously not going to match, a proper big Bluetooth speaker or wearing headphones, but if you're someone like me that just likes the convenience of having it playing directly from your phone and being able to move around your house freely, this was something that was incredible for me. I'm able to, listen to a podcast while I'm showering without having a Bluetooth speaker. I'm able to go around, if I'm cooking and have the oven stove vent on and I can still hear everything perfectly fine. I feel like it just doesn't get talked about enough, but compared to the 11 Pro and any other iPhones I've had in the past, the speakers are incredibly loud and sound excellent. One of the other really great things about this phone, and the other main reason why I decided to go with the 12 Pro Max over the other iPhone 12 models, is the battery life. I can confidently say this is a 2-day phone for the majority of people. I've had this for about a month, like I said, so I've had a lot of real world use along with that initial excitement and overusing when you first get your phone. And I'm generally ending my days with somewhere around 60 to 70% battery life. On a heavier day, maybe 40 or 50%, but my average, I would say, is somewhere around 60 to 65% battery life. One of the big things that they advertised this year was the 5G coverage. I don't care at all about 5G. Most people can't get 5G in their areas, so that was a non-feature for me, to be honest. But I haven't done a ton of LTE tests myself, but I have heard reports from quite a few people that the LTE coverage has actually been a little bit more consistent and improved because of the newer antennas. So that was a really nice thing to see. Not a very big deal for me. I'm usually either in really good service or absolutely no service out in the wilderness, so I don't get a lot of that in between back and forth. But that's something worth noting if you have potentially spotty or slow data speeds in your area. A few other things that were a bit disappointing to see when the announcement video was made: we still don't have a 120 Hz ProMotion display, and we are still stuck with the Lightning port. And after the news of the MagSafe charger, it's seeming like they're going to skip over a USB-C port altogether and most likely opt for a portless iPhone in the next year or two cycle. So no USB-C, no ProMotion display. I was very, very excited for a ProMotion display this year, so that was a really big disappointment. I would have much preferred a better display over the 5G, but we can always hope for next year that they're going to incorporate that, so we will see how the future goes with the iPhones. I do want to take a minute to thank the sponsor of today's video though, and that is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning platform that has thousands of different classes from business, entrepreneurship, iPhone photography, anything that you can think of in a creative professional field. They probably have a class to teach you about it. All of the classes are highly curated and made by very talented creators, and Skillshare costs less than $10 a month with an annual membership. The most recent series I watched was in preparation for today's video, and it was iPhone Photography, How to Take Pro Photos with Your iPhone by Dale McManus. It's definitely at more of a beginner level than I'm typically used to watching, but it's always good to brush up on that sort of stuff. And you can always learn an extra trick or two from hearing the thoughts from another photographer. No matter what iPhone you have, I definitely recommend that you check out that class. There's a ton of great info in there. The first 1,000 people to sign up with the link in the description of this video will receive a free trial of a Skillshare Premium membership, so definitely check that out if you haven't before. Tons of great stuff on there on a ton of subjects, so big thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. All in all, this was a really solid year for iPhone, although I'm still extremely disappointed about the lack of ProMotion display and am a little bit disappointed by the ultra-wide and telephoto cameras. This is still a really amazing phone. Anyone that might still be rocking an iPhone 6 or 7 or 8, I think this would be just leaps and bounds better than what you might even expect from a new iPhone, and would highly recommend that you check this one out. But anyone on some of the newer models, the 10, 10S, or 11, it might be worthwhile to hold off until next year in hopes that we get that 120 Hz ProMotion display if that's something that you care about. Either way though, this is an excellent phone, and for the few minor complaints that I have, this thing is incredible in many more ways. So big thanks for everyone for checking this video out. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Please keep it civil. The Android versus iPhone battle is pointless. They're all great phones. Let's just chill out and have a good time and enjoy our technology. Thanks so much for watching though, and I'll talk to you in the next one.